And Iran has been threatening recently to block the Strait of Hormuz, which of course we know is the main export route for Gulf oil. What do you think the political consequences of that could be?
I'm deeply and genuinely worried about what will happen if the Iranians shut the Strait of Hormuz as they promised. I think you'll have a situation where we start sleepwalking into war on both sides, where there are extremists on both sides who want a conflict, who would love a conflict because it would serve their purposes in the West. There are people who want to take out Iran, both for America's national interest, so-called, and of course for the Israelis. And in Iran, there are hardliners who see that the Islamic Revolution is failing, who are seeing the Green Movement popular, who are seeing lots of people protesting against the regime, and see a foreign war, who see the idea of being under attack as a way of uniting the country. So there are hardliners on both sides, and I think the people in the middle have to be careful that we don't allow the hardliners to kind of allow us to sleepwalk into war, where they shut the Straits of Hormuz, and the Americans, who I suspect don't want to go to war, not in an election year, are forced to come in order to secure the oil and to protect the Israelis if Israel were to attack Iran as well, which is a $64,000 question.
You've mentioned that this year is of course an election year in the US. Do you think that the US is likely to wait until that election is over, when in doing so it could anger Israel by not acting sooner?
Well, that's the interesting question. I think of their own free will, I don't think they do want to go to war. I think Obama is running on a campaign of trying to energize his base, saying, we're the guys who ended Iraq, we're the guys who are going to bring troops home from Afghanistan, we're the guys who took a back seat in Libya and didn't put boots on the ground. The idea that you would then kick off a conflict with Iran, and as one American general put it, if you liked Iraq and Afghanistan, you'll love Iran. I mean, it would be a major conflict. And I think if you listen to, for example, Defense Secretary Panetta saying recently that actually an attack on Iran would have unintended consequences, would be a backlash against American troops in the region. Clearly he's not keen on it. And yet, if the Israelis were to strike Iran and Iran were to strike back, then the Americans will be drawn in whether they like it or not, because they can't abandon Israel. They can't abandon Israel for strategic purposes. They certainly can't abandon Israel in an election year.
We're in very shaky economic times globally at the moment, but what no one seems to be talking about is what the economic consequences of a war with Iran would be.
In an age where we are facing a double-dip recession, possibly another Great Depression, where oil prices are already so high, we could see an attack on Iran pushing oil prices above $150 a barrel. Some analysts say even a record high of above $200 a barrel, which really would tip the entire world economy, not just us, but the Asians, the Chinese, back into a major, major recession, major downturn. And I think people have kind of turned a blind eye to this. And only recently, with the Iranians threatening to block the Strait of Hormuz, where I think a third of the world's seaborne oil passes through, have people started to go, well, wait a minute, what the hell is going to happen to oil prices? And I think that's a factor in the American government's reasoning as well, perhaps less so in the Israeli government's reasoning.
Mehdi Hasan, thank you very much.
Thank you.